Now in this video, we're going to take a look at how to get some content displayed using Django. And the process, these steps that are required are not really any different from any other framework that might seem more straightforward, such as Flask, except in Django, they are distributed across multiple files, and that can be a little confusing trying to connect the dots. So let's see if we can make some more sense of that. Now from the previous file or the previous video, I've still got the server, the development server running. I'm going to leave that running in this terminal. I'm just going to create a new terminal. And of course, I'll have to cd into record store because I want to have easy access to the manage.py file. Now, I'm going to create what's called an app in Django. And a Django app is basically a unit of related functionality. So for example, and I'm going to use the manage.py file for that. Manage.py file, use the command startup, and I'll give the app a name of store. And so this is going to be where our catalog is, our catalog of all the records or songs that are going to be available for sale will be. And if you look inside of store, there are a number of files, some of which we'll look at in this video, and some of which we'll look at later. For now, what I want to draw your attention to is this apps.py file. And in this apps.py file is a store config object. Now we're not going to modify it. We're going to use this to tell the project, which is record store, about the app. Because when we create the app, the project doesn't know anything about it. And the way that we do that is to go into record store and settings.py. I'm going to delete these comments here because this resolution screen real estate is a premium. And under this installed apps, the way that we install it is simply by providing the namespace or the fully qualified name of that config class. So that will be store.apps.storeConfig. All right, so that's all that we need to do inside of the project. Now let's take a look at the store app itself. Going to go into this views file, views.py file. Now a view in Django is the logic behind an application. It's what handles HTTP requests. Now views in other frameworks, they are what Django calls templates. That's the presentation layer, the HTML and CSS and those such stuff that you actually see. But in Django, it's where the logic is contained. It's where again, the handlers are contained. And a handler is merely a function. So I'm going to create one for the index. And they always take a request. And I'm simply going to have this return a call to this render function up here. And a render function is going to render a template. And the template is what you actually see. So it takes the request. And it's also going to take a path to the template. Now the path is going to be relative to, by default, a templates directory inside of the app. So I'm going to create one that'll be in a subdirectory of that called store index.html. So to make this a little bit more clear, let's go ahead and create that templates directory and that store directory or folder. And then that index.html file. So when a request is routed to this handler function, it will render the template at templates store index.html and return that in an HTTP response. All right, so index.html, that can be very simple. Let's just do a doc type, head, not header, but head, title, Django, record store, and then for right now, H2, welcome to the record store. All right. Don't need anything else in there for right now. We just want to be able to see that we can get content up in the browser. Now the problem is, how do we route a request to this index handler function? And there are a number of ways to do this, but the most straightforward and most common is to create a new file inside of the app called urls.py. And in here, we're going to have to bring in from the Django HTTP module a function called path. And we're going to create a list called URL patterns. And these are things that Django looks for this URL patterns list. I'm going to say, call the path function. And first of all, I'm going to tell it what path do I want to route, what URL pattern or path do I want to route to that particular view function. And in this case, it's going to be the root. I'm not going to have anything special on here, so I'll just put an empty string. Then I'm going to give it the view itself. So I'll need to import my views. So from the current package, import views. That'll be in views.py. And then I'll say views.index is the name, or not the name of the function, but is the function that I want to route to. And I'm going to give it a name of index, and you'll see when this comes in handy later on, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in there before I forget. So now, when a request comes in to the root of this app, it's going to be routed to the index function in views, or the index view function. That's going to render this HTML file and return it in HTML and return it in HTTP response. Now the problem is we got one more piece, and actually there's something I forgot to do in here. This app name is required, and I'll just give it the same name as the app itself. The project still doesn't know anything about our URLs. And if you recall from earlier, the project has a urls.py file of its own. And there's some more boilerplate comments that can be removed. I'm going to import a function called include here. And then I'm going to create another path. Now notice there's already a path here to admin, and we'll see that soon enough, what that goes to. But I'm going to add another one to store. And I'm going to call include. I'm going to say any URL that begins with store, basically forward it to the store.urls. I'm also include this namespace keyword argument of store because it's going to come in handy later as well. Now everything should be running. Let's see here. Can I pull HTTP? I made a mistake over here. That should be Django.urls. There we go. So now, again, the migrations, we don't have to worry about those yet. But the development server is started. And if I go back over to the browser, go to 127.0.0.1.8000/store, we see welcome to the record store, which of course is what is displayed by this file here. So let's review really quickly what's happening. I have a URL that begins with store. In the urls.py file for the project, we see that anything beginning with store is routed by stores.urls. That package, which is this file. In here, we have a path that says if nothing is added to the URL, nothing else added to the URL, in this case store, then route to the index view function in views.py, which will render the HTML file at templates store index.html, which shows this text. Right? If that doesn't make total sense yet, it's okay. I'm going to do this many more times throughout the series, but in the next video, we'll take a look at how to start getting data into the application.